Before I pick up where we left off on the readings, I wanted to give you guys a message about why I'm reading this particular text. Some questions have arisen from other YouTubers, and I have had some people try to post comments which are more about the man, Zecharia Sitchin, than about the text we're reading here. The forum for discussing the history of the translator is here, not on my videos where I read from the text of Sitchin's work. I believe the practice of time, place, and manner applies here, and I'm glad to engage in lively discussion on the appropriate video pages. There will be no excessive use of cursing, name-calling, or hit-and-run trolling in my comments section. This is a venue to offer your evidence and intelligent commentary about Sitchin, ancient Sumer, the meaning of the Enuma Elish, and Sitchin's translations of the additional Sumerian writings, your thoughts on whether such writings represent myth or a reportage of actual events, and so forth. If I have to remove comments, I will do it without hesitation and approve comments which have a genuine opinion or which present evidence on issues relating to Sitchin, the translations, etc. You get the idea. Don't let me down. About the 12th planet, as well as the notion that you need a degree to be a scholar or a researcher. Please do not confuse the translations of Sitchin with Sitchin's first book on the Sumerian texts, the 12th planet. This was not a scholarly work per se, not a rich translation of the vast wealth of cuneiform tablets, and not something which can be taken seriously as an example of the man's life work. It was damned entertaining, though, and it sure makes people stop and consider whether the version of history they have been attached to, well, maybe it's not quite as accurate as they were taught. The 12th planet is similar to Erich von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods, in that there is more of an overview of a thesis than an in-depth research project going on. The ancient astronaut hypothesis, as many of you may know it, deals with the possibility that some of the evidence left behind by our progenitors may have been the work of or assisted by a more advanced group of beings, possibly from the realms beyond Earth. Some of this evidence may be in our very DNA, and as time passes and research progresses, there seems to be mounting evidence that we are not simply beings who evolved on this planet. Time will tell, and I'm willing to bet that folks will have plenty to reconsider about who they are, where they came from, and what wonders lie in our distant and shared past. Because the average person has no desire to dive into huge volumes of boring translations, several competent researchers such as Sitchin and von Daniken opted to release books which more readily appealed to people who were not scholars, professional researchers, fellow archaeologists, etc. Let me remind you that anyone can get a 4-year degree and call himself or herself an archaeologist or a linguist, and their studies may stop right there after those 4 years. Mine certainly did. Many people major in one subject in college or university and never pursue that subject as a career. That is what happened in my case. But what of people who spend 30, 40, or even 50 years researching? What of them? 40 or 50 years researching, writing, lecturing, and presenting what they have found? Would they be any less reputable simply because they lack that 4-year certification? The same people who cry, Sitchin is not an archaeologist, he has no credentials, he has no degree. Well, you know, those same people oftentimes are the self-same people who frequently make statements like, anyone can get a piece of paper, or so what, letters after your name, big deal. Committing oneself to decades of study and toil is to be lauded in my book, degree or no degree, with or without letters after your name. And if you're good at what you do, then more power to you. You cannot use this as an excuse here. You cannot strip the reputation from researchers nor the value from the research on the basis of idiotic and random excuses like, so-and-so never went to school for that, he has no degree. There are researchers here on YouTube who have zero higher education, and they are better researchers, more thorough, more concise, and more on point than some of the professors I had in law school. I say, Look at the work and see how it stands up. Stop nitpicking and pay attention to what is being put before you. About Sitchin, Maxwell, Masonry, and the agenda of the illumined ones. Yes, there are a couple of videos here on YouTube, and even a few blurbs here and there on the internet, which paint Sitchin as a Mason. Some claim that Sitchin is a 32nd or 33rd degree Master Mason, or possibly higher. Maybe even a CIA operative or member of Mossad. Search on YouTube and you will find these videos. I'm not going to post them here. Surely someone will post them as a response. Anyway, in one video, we see a man who resembles Sitchin and he is participating in a Masonic rite. Another video shows Sitchin and Jordan Maxwell shaking hands in a Masonic fashion. You can judge for yourself what you see, and you can judge what it means to you personally. I'm not going to get into that here. I will lay out for you my feelings on this. You don't have to buy into it. Let's just assume Sitchin is a Mason. We'll leave Maxwell out of it here for a minute. If he were using his intellects and craft to be of use to the New World Order, you would think he could have come up with a better way to score points for him and his comrades. I mean, the guy spent decades poring over incredibly boring and tedious work, writing over a dozen books, 14 to be exact at last count, which no one really bothers to read. They only read the 12th planet. His other books, I have to tell you, most of them are not fun reading, except for the 12th planet. So he spends his whole life hunched over in labs and libraries and other places which are boring as hell, translating a bunch of gibberish that no one reads, no one cares about, and that hardly anyone takes seriously. Could he have secretly made another translation for Masonic eyes only and left us this bogus Anunnaki-loving translation to fool us all? Maybe. Or maybe he spent his life faking the translations or making them up just to get humanity to believe in certain things. Perhaps. But since the other translations, the real ones and not the ones that people proffer just to take a swipe at Sitchin on a personal and professional level and get attention for themselves and their lackluster careers, you know who you are. The other real translations do not differ in any significant degree from Sitchin's. In fact, Sitchin's are more thorough. He spent a million billion years researching this stuff. Were all of these people Masons? All of these translators? Some would say that they were, and they were all Freemasons. Is that really likely? No. It is possible, but you know what? It's not probable. Let's talk about the Masons. Here's my take on Masons. Little story for you. When I was in college, I lived off campus. Sometimes I studied in my car, so I could blast my cassettes of The Lewd and GBH while I read boring translations of things that no one bothers to read. I also sat in my car because for some reason the parking attendants loved to ticket my car. If I was in the car and they showed up, the mere sight of a mohawked woman made them run in fear. They knew I hated them for all those tickets. Was it my fault that my "We're the Meatmen and You Suck" bumper sticker mostly covered my parking sticker? Maybe. But it was added fun in my day to terrorize these parking attendant morons. So, lying in wait, I would sit, reading, pounding my fist to the music. Sometimes I took evening classes, and I began to notice that in my rearview mirror, I would see strange things taking place in what I thought was some sort of office building. I would back my car to the edge of the lot and watch in all of my mirrors. Men, women, all wearing white, all driving white cars. And hey, they were getting free valet parking in our college parking lot. Where were those pesky ticket writers then, I wondered? All of the fancy people in their white clothes, white cars, they all seemed to be Fords and Lincolns, and mostly the same models. And they all had these strange thingies on the trunk of their car. Not those fish thingies, you know, those sticker-type metal thingies. I'd already solved that mystery, but this one was something new, something exciting. Here was a secret meeting or party of some sort, and people were bringing all sorts of food and covered dishes. I was sure that there were casseroles of untold delight, probably some amazing cakes and desserts too. Here was a society right under my nose that I had never seen in all the years I lived in my little town. I was busy studying the Yanomamo, who I really didn't like very much, the Maya, the indigenous Americans, and all the time this was taking place right outside the damn building. Oh, I was going to get to the bottom of this. There was a major thesis a-comin' alrighty. Later that week, my best friend and I were walking through the parking lot, and I pointed to the building across the street. "See that?" I asked cryptically. "What?" she asked. I changed course and began to walk towards the mystery place. The thing that I had thought was an office building for the past 17 years. But I only got halfway there. "The shrine temple, you mean? Or that dry cleaning place over there?" my friend asked. "The what?" "No, that thing. The place over there. Look. The windows are all blacked out. I thought it was an office, but the other night I saw some crazy shit. And when I walked over there the next day, the windows, look, they're all blacked out. I thought it was like one of those rent-a-places where you can have a wedding or something. But no, there's just this symbol over there. Look, like the ones on those people's cars and shit. Really, look." My friend shook her head and said, "Shrine temple, if you want to go, we can go there sometime. But we will need to wear wigs and normal people clothes." You see, she also had a mohawk. But more than that, she had secret knowledge. I did not go to that particular shrine temple to investigate the goings-on, but I did write one hell of a paper. We had great secret books at my college, and I was so enthralled with one particular book that when I graduated a few months later, there was a note in my diploma which read, "This diploma is not valid until you return that book and pay your parking fines." Really, this is a true story. And they actually let me keep the book for a few more months, plus they waived my fines. Did I have secret Shriner friends at work helping me? My oldest friend, not the Mohawk friend, but the friend I've had since 7th grade until today. She was severely burned when she was 6 months of age. Her father was a reverend, and one afternoon at a church supper, my little baby friend, who was 6 months old, was sitting in her stroller next to a table of refreshments. My little baby 6-month-old friend was minding her own business in her stroller when that card table collapsed and huge urns of boiling coffee spilled into the stroller where she slept. Now, I do not need to go into what happens when you dump boiling fluid into a stroller containing an infant. You can figure that out for yourself. But I will go into this. Without the Shriners Burn Hospital for Children, I would never have had my oldest and dearest friend. Shrine members who were at that supper had my little baby friend flown to Miami, where she was saved. Her life has not been the easiest, of course, and the number of surgeries she has required over her lifetime is mind-blowing. But the Shriners came to the rescue, and years later I met my very best pal. And she is not the only person close to me who was saved by these Shriners hospitals. I would venture to say that some of the most extraordinary and wonderful people I have ever had the privilege to know were there for me to know because the Shriners stepped in. And while my investigation into the Masons and Shriners began in 1987, what I have learned has not made me fear, hate, despise, eschew, revile, repel, or detest the very fine Shriners which I have known. Are there bad Shriners, evil Masons who perform demonic rites, possibly even worship the very devil himself? You bet. There are. But there are pediatricians and nursery school teachers who molest children, public servants who violate civil rights, judges who flagrantly flout the law with their intoxicated, reckless, and negligent conduct. There are bad people everywhere you choose to look. And there are really good people everywhere you choose to look. You may not want to hear this, but I am way past being fed up with the constant flow of negativity washing over the so-called truther movement. All of the, "oh no, the Illuminati are coming to get us," all the while doing nothing to help society or your fellow man in any direct, real-world kind of way. You have to be the good in the world to see the good in the world. I think I just made that up right now, but it seems true enough. Maybe I heard it somewhere, I don't know. Not everyone who is a Mason is evil. Not everyone who is a Shriner or Master Mason has an agenda that runs contrary to the well-being of the universe. Now, I know many of you think that just the act of being a Mason is evil in and of itself. Maybe you are right. But what if you are? Well, if you are right, then there are a whole lot of evil people in this world because there sure are a lot of Masons. Let's just say this. I hope you're wrong. I'm trained to take on the bad guy once I see that he is the bad guy. Don't mistake me for some super enlightened meditation junkie who plans to battle the gun takers with a cluster of delicate baby asparagus. No. I would love to say that I am above all that violence and that when I see evil, I just love my way through the experience. I do not live on that planet, but I do not project evil onto everyone I see or onto every organization I study. If I see some evil getting happening, then I pounce like a tiger with the claws and the teeth, but not before. The saying about the baby in the bathwater comes to mind, but that's a little too close to home with my friend and the coffee. What I am saying is, can you really throw away everyone who is a Mason, accused of being a Mason, knows a Mason, is Jewish or is married to a Jewish person, and who is a suspected Zionist? Really? Just because someone says or suspects something? Is this really reason to turn your back on entire groups of people or individuals? Certain folks we can treat as a group. The Council on Foreign Relations, executives of Goldman Sachs, where we truly see an evil agenda, a greedy agenda, and we see who is at the helm, then we can call that evil, because there is a little something called evidence. Show me evidence of the evil, and I am not on the side of that person. But guys, being a Mason, not an act in evil. Not an act of evil for the majority of Masons. And folks like Maxwell and Sitchin, who spent decades researching so that they could provide us with info, which we would not otherwise have. Should we or dare we totally dismiss everything they show us simply on the basis of allegations of Freemasonry? That's a decision you make for yourself. Me? I do not see evil or bad intentions under every rock. I look at what is being presented, check it for myself to the best of my ability. Then I sit back and wait to see if the information proves truthful given my observations, my studies, experiences, and based on my learning curve. Some information proves really accurate, some does not pan out, and some, well, the jury is still out, and it may always be. Let's get back to the reasons for why I am reading the Lost Book of Enki. The main thing I want to communicate here is that I do not hold the Enuma Elish as gospel. I don't hold anything as gospel. I do not worship the Anunnaki, and I do not have a shrine to Nibiru in my basement. I think that these texts, among many other early writings, can provide some insight into our history as a species. There are many researchers who believe that such texts are legends, creation myths, symbolic representations of events witnessed in the heavens, and then anthropomorphized into stories, that the personages of the folks in the tale are not meant to indicate actual people or gods or aliens, but that these are just archetypes. I urge you, if you are serious about understanding our origins and those who came before us, please seek out these alternative theories, ideas, studies, and the research which underlie them. The Sumerian texts are not the end-all and be-all of human history. They are not the whole story. But I have 100% belief that not all ancient texts are just legends and myths. Not all stories left to us by our ancestors describe heavenly activity, the movements of celestial bodies and such. I have a very different theory. I am sure someone else shares this theory. I believe that the heavens, the cosmos, since the sky was always there, the ancients used the sky as a map of their history. Stories of ancient days were passed along to new generations, with the sky, the heavens as a map, a gigantic storybook in the air. Names of actual people were given to heavenly bodies, and if we combine the electric universe or thunderbolts theory in with my concept, there were probably times when all kinds of wild things were happening in the sky. Such events likely increased and embellished the already existing tales. It makes me wish I were there to see all that stuff. Let me give you an example. Since we can assume that our earliest ancestors, those who had the capacity to comprehend a passage of time and who had an innate need to communicate with one another, we can assume that these people did not have pens, paper, or any shared written language, or really any way to tell a coherent narrative. Yet they had the desire to do just that. There are stories which are archetypal, and we are thrilled by them, like the hero. We don't even care sometimes if it's an old theme. Again, the hero, for example. Everyone who saw Braveheart likely saw it again, more than once. Has anyone ever just seen it once? I doubt it. What I am saying here is that a truly great story, especially one that inspires awe in folks, well, you just want to hear it again and again, and you want everyone you know to hear it as well. So I think this is how the sky history thing started. It gave a beautiful visual for storytellers to work with, to tell the tales of plenty and pride during times of famine and darkness. Stories like this would give warnings to the younger people, advice for the future, inspiration and cause for introspection, a means of building and fostering good character. Our earliest of ancestors would not have had any fancy means of conveying all these things, except for that wondrous sky. We are the ones who have trouble accepting that initially the tales were probably true. You cannot and do not tell tales of genetic experimentation and sky chariots if no one has ever seen such a thing. These things would be outside the realm of possibility. Just as unimagined goings-on are transpiring right now in the cosmos, and beings far greater in capacity take these magnificent events and observances as humdrum bits of their existence. We could not in our wildest imaginings tell the tales of what they might be up to. Need I mention the solar anvil one more time? We have no way to comprehend even so much as the full spectrum of light, so we are missing a lot right here on our own planet. You cannot invent things which are so far outside your daily reality. It's just not possible, I fear. 5,500 years ago, nobody knew what DNA was. No one knew about terror weapons, missiles, beams that enable people to speak planet to planet. And they didn't know about these things in scientific terms. And yet, here we have thousands of cuneiform tablets, and they seem to tell us that someone knew about these things way back then. Did they see them in the sky? DNA and terror weapons? No, I really doubt that. Did they use the sky to tell the tales? I bet they did. I'm not asking you to accept everything I say as a fact, just asking for you to consider that as a possibility. Personally, I think it is highly plausible that the tales of the ancient Sumerians may be true to some degree. The Anunnaki, when we study them, they seem very much like us in their personalities and actions. They resolve disputes in a similar manner. They have a sense of honor and duty and justice which is really similar to our own. Their views on how science and destiny shape their decisions and their rationale for being progressive in their approach to such things, well, that really sounds kind of familiar to me. If our world was dying and we had to save ourselves or perish, what would we do? The Anunnaki treated their slave population, us, if you would like to call it that, much better than the conquerors of new worlds treated the indigenous peoples. Look at how Australia dealt with their aboriginal population, even up until very recent times. The movie Rabbit Proof Fence is a great depiction of that behavior. We are not much different than these Anunnaki of ancient legend. Not really. In fact, we are more brutal, less organized, more warlike, and we fail in an epic manner to treat our fellow creatures with the respect that someone like Enki showed the beings which he had helped to create. Some will shun the texts, maybe call them satanic or demonic. That is a matter of opinion, and one which I simply cannot share. I do not believe it is ever proper to relegate the beliefs of anyone to the realms of worthlessness or to pure evil. We are free to believe as we choose. So many will not want to hear the readings which I provide. They don't care about them. Some will say that the translations are worthless on the basis that Sitchin had an agenda, possibly an agenda related to his alleged participation in Masonic Lodge activity. And again, it is anyone's right to dismiss the text on that basis. But when we turn our backs on information, we deprive ourselves of power and knowledge. If we fear the influence of the words, thoughts, or writings of others, then I would have to say that this indicates a lack of inner fortitude and power. The mere words of others and the discoveries or presentations of your fellow humans should not threaten you, because in the end, you are free to believe and to do as you choose. I welcome video responses about the issues I have raised here. There is one YouTuber in particular who would like to take up the Mason issue, and I welcome your findings, my friend. I mean that, truly. You know this. Please enjoy my readings from the Lost Book of Enki, and know that mine are not the only readings from Sitchin's books available on YouTube. There is at least one other person who provides uninterrupted Sitchin reading. So guys, have a wonderful day, a brilliant new year, and keep looking up, my friends.